Welcome back, racing fans, to our broadcast set outside the winner's circle. Once again, I am joined by our very special guest, Scott Zeron. Now, Scott, before we get to some good memories for you, let's talk a little bit about your injuries that you suffered a couple of weeks ago. Looks like you're getting around pretty well. What were your injuries?
I had a 3-inch fracture on the front of my pelvis. I had a small fracture in my left wrist and a dislocated left shoulder.
Now, I'm familiar with the dislocated left shoulder, so that was kind of the least of your worries, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was. I went back in nice and easy, and I haven't really lost any mobility from it. But the left wrist, there's not a lot of blood flow that goes to the back of the wrist in that area, so that will take a little bit of time. And the hip, I mean, I've never felt what it's like to be handicapped, and I really am feeling it now.
Is it like a positioning thing? Are you only comfortable when you're laying down or sitting up? You know, what about those things?
It hasn't been that long after the accident, so now it's just all the swelling that's come down. It's been a little better. Mobility's all right. I can walk around. I'm walking on par, kind of like T-Trick. Like, just we look the same when we walk, but I just have a broken hip. But, it's going to get better.
Now, you were saying to people that I'll be back in 4 to 6. I thought it was 4 to 6 months, but that's not the case.
No, 4 to 6 weeks, they said. And anyone who knows horses, the last thing you want injured is tendons. And for me, it's just bones. So it's good to have a bone injury, and it'll calcify before you know it.
Are you going to have to do a lot of physical therapy and stuff like that?
Yeah, that'll come about just so I don't lose mobility in the hip and legs. And, at the end of the day, I'll be back in the bike when I'm back in the bike. And at the level that I have to come back to, I can't be vulnerable in any way or feel like I can't hold a horse. I have to be the one in control and to make sure I don't go home in pain every day.
All right, now at about 6:35 this evening, we'll have the 97th edition of the Hambletonian, and we're going to be missing the fact that Scott Zeron won't be driving in it. But we're going to turn back the clock 6 years. Let's take a look at the stretch run of Marauder and Scott Zeron winning the Hambletonian. Why don't you walk us through it?
Yeah, it was a crazy day of racing. In the elimination, I had a nice trip, and he finished strong with the plugs in. I won going forward across the wire, so I was confident heading to the final. In the final, I really had no choice but to be in a first-up position. And down the lane, it was just toe-to-toe with Yannick's horse. He got up the inside. I felt like he had a much better trip. And at the same time, it was really going to always come down to that finish. I wish I knew mentally I won going across the wire, because I never got that sensation until they officially said I was the winner. So I didn't get to cheer right yet.
What were some of the good things about Marauder?
Well, Marauder was not like a lot of other horses. For some reason, he knew where the start and the finish pole were, and not a lot of horses do. So his job every time, he didn't really like going to the front, because I guess to him it was boring. So he kind of liked just racing other horses, and he was a very competitive horse that way. In Lexington, to finish off the win of the Triple Crown, I thought he was in an impossible position following Bar Hopping and Southwind Frank. I was third over behind them, and he just he puts his head down and he goes forward, and he might not open up 10 lengths past the wire, but he was always going to stick his nose out.
Now, your second Hambletonian score came with the Super Filly, who raced earlier today. She's amassed 34 wins in her career, over $3.25 million in earnings. Of course, I talk about Atlanta. Let's take a look at that stretch run here.
Yeah, this was a day of emotions, because the elimination, I honestly didn't think I was going those fast fractions. And to go across the wire tired was the first time ever in her life that she was tired finishing a race. And you don't want that on a 2-heat day of racing. And heading into the final, I actually had Jason Bartlett really pep talk me and just said, "Do you think she's the best horse in the race?" I said, I truly believe she is. And I said, even though she was tired after the first leg, I just, maybe I'll look for a helmet trip. He goes, "If you think she's the best horse in the race her like she is." And honestly, that gave me a little confidence, a little nice pep talk. And I did that. There was really nobody else to cut that mile. I was able to get a nice second quarter, and I had told my dad, I said, and Ernie the groom, I said, honestly, in the middle of the last turn, I'm going to try to bring whoever is first up to me, and I'm going to pull the trigger and go as fast as I can through that turn and just open up. And she delivered.
Now, why did she lose earlier in the day?
Today?
Was it a bad drive? No, I'm talking about the Hambletonian.
Certainly, it was certainly a bad drive, but she's not a normal horse. She got over the ground so well. You go from driving thousands of other races to a horse like her. She does it so effortlessly, really you lose that clock and the tempo in your head. And I went 26 to the quarter pole, so then the half, 53 and a piece came up, and I just thought, where am I going? What am I doing? And she was tired finishing that elimination.
What about the fact that your dad was the trainer of the horse? How special was that? Winning in the Hambletonian.
There was a lot of things. I was the one who told him that I wanted her in the Hambletonian, so I felt that weight on my shoulders that she's capable of beating anybody you face her against. So if you want to go in the Oaks, we can go in the Oaks. At that point, it would have been against Manchego, so it would have been a really tough race. But I just felt no matter what, coming into that race, she was the best horse I ever sat behind. And I think I thought at that time she could beat anybody. So when I lost in the elimination, it was gut-wrenching.
How much of an influence has your dad had in your career? As I like to tell everybody, he's the real driver in the family, being the dominant force at Hippodrome des Blue Bonnets back in the 80s.
Yeah, he was a really dominant driver of his career, and his style was a lot like mine. He was very conservative, patient driver. The game's changed a little bit over the years. You got to be forwardly placed, but he's been great because he has always been that guy to be patient with me as well in the learning process. And if you don't have that, it's very hard because you're going to make a lot of mistakes early on in your career. I even made one when I was in 2018 for Atlanta. Even a veteran driver, what I considered myself at the time, I made a horrible mistake. And he was fine. He said she cooled down after the race, great. Just turn the page, she can win the final.
Now, your mom has also had an influence on your career as well, because I remember before the Marion Marauder win, I was interviewing you, and you kind of said to me at one point, well, Dave, sometimes Marion Marauder stops and waits for horses to come join him, and you hear your mom in the background saying, don't tell him that. So what's going on with that?
Yeah, my mother came down with me, as well my sister that day, and it was a special day only because, as well, Shambhala raced in the U.S. Pacing Championship, which is the Sam McKee now. And Shambhala always beat Mickey. I mean, he would beat some of the greatest horses ever, and he did it really impressively. So that was exciting for my dad and those connections. So heading into the final of the Hambo, I just had so much energy and so much joy. And I just feel like those vibes transferred over and gave me the momentum to get Marion Marauder that nose across.
How much do you wish that you were out there today?
I do. It is what it is. I accept that It's a risk-reward business, and the risk is getting injured, but the reward is so sweet of winning these big races. And honestly, I'm really just happy that some of the horses I've drove all year, just like that last one, Instagram Model, is able to come to fruition and win. And doesn't need to be me. It'll be me later on. But for right now, I just hope the horses I drive are continuing to do well.
All right, well, that's the word from two-time Hambletonian champion Scott Zeron. We're going to be back after the post-parade with some commentary on the John Cashman Memorial. Zeron and Little will roll on until after the Hambletonian. Thanks for being with us on Hambletonian Day 2022.